Goedemiddag allemaal. Wij willen jullie meenemen in een reis rondom artificial intelligence, advanced machine learning en human intelligence. Wat wij zien in de huidige markt en in de wereld rondom zee wat er gebeurt is dat 95% van alle geslaagde e-mails starten, geslaagde aanvallen starten met een e-mail. De e-mail heeft kans van slagen omdat er een gebruiker achter zit. Gebruikers klikken soms makkelijk op links, openen bijlagen zijn eenvoudig enzovoort. Dat is de reden waarom phishing aanvallen vaak kans van slagen hebben. Hoe gaaf zou het zijn als wij die technieken, dat we advanced machine learning, artificial intelligence en gebruik gemaakt van de human intelligence. Want mensen die zien toch dingen anders dan dat machines ze zien. Nou, daarin gaat mijn collega-partner Ian jullie meenemen. Hij zal zo dadelijk overschakelen naar het Engels. Ian is van Cofense, een van de partijen waar wij vanuit Access 42 mee samenwerken. Ian gaat jullie meenemen in het verhaal over artificial intelligence, human intelligence en hoe we die zo optimaal mogelijk kunnen combineren. Ian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Oh, good afternoon, those of you physically present and those of you who are not physically present, I guess. Thank you for taking the time to come here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, human intelligence, crowd intelligence, and how they can be combined to give you an optimal phishing defense solution. I work for Cofense. I'm not going to try and sell you Cofense's solution, but I'm going to talk about the different components that we see typically make up a phishing defense solution. And from my own historical background, I'm going to share maybe a few insights about artificial intelligence, which is something I've been involved in either for a long time or a long time ago, depending on how I look at that. And when I was putting the presentation together, it just happened that in the news, at least in the UK, and I saw it in Germany, this article appeared last week. On the left here we see a couple and their car, and they've got a registration plate which is customized. She bought her husband out for his 50th birthday, and they recently received from the government a ticket and a bill for €90 for driving in a bus lane which was forbidden. And on the invoice there's an evidence photograph which shows clearly something completely different. It shows a woman with a t-shirt that says knitter walking in a bus lane. Okay, so my first thought was, this is one of those stupid computer stories that we all like, you know. It's like, ha ha ha, how stupid computers are, which shows us no person would make that mistake, right? I mean, and when to be fair, when they contacted the government about it or the council, they looked at it, they laughed and they cancelled the bill. So that was fair. My second thought was, actually that's quite clever, because I was involved in computer vision, artificial intelligence, but at the end of the 80s, the 1980s, and at that time this would be considered a really difficult problem. We would have probably tried to analyze this as a road and then maybe try and pick out using some sort of expert system. There's a term you haven't heard since probably 30 years ago, or knowledge-based system. Those were kind of artificial intelligence trends that never went anywhere. Pick out the car and then maybe focus on the front of the car and then try and do text recognition of the number plate. But to have a system read text off a t-shirt untrained, somebody moving, probably not even the same font or size of a registration plate, it's actually quite clever. I mean, it shows that the computer vision, not necessarily artificial intelligence, but computer vision is a very mature technology and works really well. Occasionally it goes wrong. My third thought was that if this had been China, they would have actually sent the bill to the right person. And they would have sent the lady a fine for walking in a bus lane wearing a t-shirt, and not this couple. So maybe we should be just glad that it's got its limits as a technology. But it reminded me that machine vision has been around for a long time. It's a very mature technology, as is face recognition, to be fair. Those are problems that have been worked on for a long time. The problems that artificial intelligence and machine vision tried to solve early on were very much military based, and they were kind of spotting runways and spotting aircraft and spotting tanks. And text recognition and face recognition were also, they're quite old, quite well-known topics. Why is this relevant to what we're talking about today? Well, we'll get on to that in a second, but if we're talking about phishing, and I'm not going to bore you with all the statistics of how many fish there are and the fact that X% of crypto attacks or cyber attacks start with phishing. I think we know those figures. We know that they're very high figures. But if you're going to talk about tackling phishing, then you have to really accept two things, and they're kind of two uncomfortable truths. One is that threats will continue to evade controls and reach the inboxes. So adding another perimeter defense, adding another secure email gateway, adding another whatever, it'll certainly help, but it won't stop. You won't put a box in and stop phishing. I've actually got clients who've got 3 secure mail gateway appliances chained together, and it drives them mad that stuff still gets through. And we see that. We see for every secure email gateway, we see in our phishing defense center for our clients, we see what comes through. We know what comes through which type of mail gateway. Even mail gateways that themselves use artificial intelligence are being attacked by attackers using artificial intelligence to work out what sort of emails come through the gateway. So it's kind of an escalating war. Adding another layer will help, it won't stop the problem. Okay, if we then say, well, then humans are the last line of defense, which we do, say that all the time, then despite the best security awareness programs, some users will always click. And I personally have no problem accepting that because it happened to me. And it'll happen to anybody. Any one of us in this room or on the internet will or could click on a link, no matter how much we know, because we're distracted, we're tired, the children are barking, the dog's crying, the DHL guy comes, you're in another call, an email comes that you're expecting, you click it, oh, yeah. For me, it was I woke up, looked at my phone, looked at my emails, scrolled through the emails, nothing interesting. An email popped in just as I was looking at my inbox. And of course, personally, I tend to react to things that I'm distracted by stuff that's on my phone. So when an email arrives, immediately open it. And it was like, oh, that's interesting. And I'm still half awake, so I click on it. It was actually from our CEO, who, now that I think about it, never writes to me personally. But I had just joined the company, and it was actually from the personnel director, and it did claim to be a link to a new travel policy. And I had, to be fair, actually asked to see the travel expense policy. So I really was expecting that email. So it's kind of unfair, unlucky, but it happens, right? So anybody will have that could do this. So we got two things. Technology won't solve it. People will never be 100%. If we accept that, we can start to think about a realistic approach to maybe taking both of those layers and maybe adding some more to it. It's definitely going to be multiple layers, though. Somebody's obviously got like a food thing going on here, cakes, and don't put all your eggs in one basket. You need multiple layers, defense in depth, you would call it. And also, defense in depth makes you think about, complexity, cost, multiple vendors. Do I really want to do that? Is it that difficult? Well, no. You can take what salespeople like to call low-hanging fruit, what other people call easy wins. What can you do quickly, easily, and get the most effectiveness for your money without solving all the problems, without boiling the ocean? Well, one thing you can do is actually take an offering that we've put together, which is computer vision applied to phishing emails. So we've got a system that actually looks at phishing emails, follows all the links, opens the attachment, and actually visually inspects them. So we're not looking at traditional indicators of compromise like IP addresses, domains. We're not looking for typing mistakes or a blocked list. We're actually looking at the email, we're looking at logos, we're looking at typefaces, we're looking at the visual layout of the message, we're looking at the visual layout of the landing page that's asking for the login credentials, and we're looking for things that the machine learning says these are different to what I've learned looking at the real emails of this company, looking at the real logos, looking at the real landing pages, which is quite plausible if you think particularly with logos, that the main characteristic of a logo is that it's recognizable. So recognizing a logo actually is not rocket science, but recognizing an incorrectly placed logo or a distorted or somehow different logo is quite easy. And since we said that that by itself, no, very clever. It might reduce the number of fish coming through by 60%. That's what we see in our organization. We've seen higher, but 60% seems to be a good figure. It'll get 60%. Not perfect, but quick and easy win. It can open all of the links. It can take more time than maybe a secure email gateway works, but also it works in a different way. It does this visual inspection rather than a technical inspection. And then we combine that with the ability to run phishing simulation campaigns for the end users to give them a chance to learn how to respond to phishing, to give them a way of reporting suspected fish. And we can do both of those quite quickly. You're not rolling out a load of software, it's simply a service that you can turn on. So pretty easy, set and forget. We recommend monthly phishing simulations. A bit like if I said I'm going to go to the gym once a year, it's not really going to help. Doing a simulation once a month or once a quarter doesn't really help, and the attacks change quite regularly. So if you can set aside a few minutes once a month for a user to watch a piece of education or respond to a phishing simulation, that's going to be a kind of a good point to be. You'll get some value, it won't take up a lot of time. Completely automated reporting, picking out in your own language simulations based on current best practice, for example, showing phishing simulations that we know would come through your mail gateway. So if you say, well, we use Proofpoint, then we can show you emails that come through Proofpoint. Otherwise, there's no benefit to it. We can suggest, based on previous responses, what the best next simulation would be. We have this responsive delivery. This is the thing that caught me, I think. It makes the campaigns much more effective. When we notice that a user is active in their inbox, which we can pick up from the server, then we can place the email into their inbox. So if I'm not looking at my email, I don't get an email coming in, because people tend to not look at stuff that arrived overnight or if they're on vacation. So that makes things a lot more enticing. And what we also see is if we give you users a button to report the simulation or report a suspected mail, what we're looking to do is kind of develop almost a reflex where you don't think about it too long. You see something weird, you click the phishing button, it goes to be analyzed. You don't have to think who do you forward it to or what's the email address. You just click the button and it's gone, and you get feedback. People respond quickly. Once they've got the hang of it and they're used to it and they've tested it, within 30 seconds, a lot of people are going to be responding. Within 5 minutes, more than half of the users will have responded. And then some people obviously take a bit longer on average. But that means that easily within a few minutes, you've got people who've recognized this phishing simulation or have detected potentially a phishing attack. That's after they've had some awareness training and they've got a button that they're used to that they can report on, whether it's on the mobile phone or in Outlook, doesn't matter, the button will work the same way. So we've got a way now of reporting emails, user awareness. Those are not going to be replaced by anything artificial intelligence, machine learning hasn't really got any role there. At the earlier stages, definitely the visual inspection, the secure email gateway, those are things that you can automate. What we're seeing, okay, here we're saying somebody saw a 90% reduction. For me, 60% is a more realistic figure to block stuff automatically. The question then is, how are we doing? So we've got a secure email gateway. Maybe it's got AI in it, probably has. It'll let some stuff through, we know that. Then we've got protect, and we're saying, okay, that might get another 60%, but still stuff coming through. Then we've got the human bit, the learning. Well, we've kind of accepted that somebody will always click on a link, but we've also seen that 50% of the people will report something within 5 minutes, and some will report very quickly. So we don't need everybody to report. We just need some people to report quickly. Did that stop the fish by itself? No, the fish are now getting reported quickly. How can we then take that and do something useful with it? Well, we can send the fish that's been reported to a human analyst. Again, there's no point trying to use AI or machine learning because the fish has already made it through those stages. So it's going to be difficult for a machine to spot it. It should be easy for a user to spot it. And a SOC analyst who does nothing else except look at phishing attacks. Do you remember the picture of the woman in the street with the t-shirt? How obvious it was to you that that wasn't a car? Well, for a SOC analyst who's analyzing phishing emails, it's the same thing. They're looking at a phishing email. It's obvious to them that it is or isn't a phish. They can check a few things, but their gut instinct will tell them what to check. They'll be able to respond within certainly a couple of hours, probably within a couple of minutes in the most of the time. So that's a person using automated tools to take out the noise, to cluster emails together, to make their job easy, but the actual determination that something's a phish or not a phish is typically taken by a human in a phishing defense center, which we offer as a service, which our partners offer as a service, which you could also, if you had a SOC team, use the tools in-house. Those can then integrate with other tools, but that key thing I think here is that if some users report a phish and the SOC analyst looks at that quickly with the right tools and says, yes, that's a phish, that the logical option is then to take that phish out of all of the email boxes in your organization before the other people have a chance to click on it. So that's kind of the final remediation step. We can do that as soon as we've seen a confirmed phish, that one user has reported it or two users have reported it. We can then take that email out of all the other inboxes, and therefore we don't have to worry so much, or don't have to worry at all actually, that some users will click on the link, because as long as some users report quickly, we can deal with it. We can take it out of the inbox. We can put it back if that was a mistake. We can unquarantine or quarantine. That's an exchange function. But that gives you then a kind of an end-to-end point. At the beginning, yeah, you can definitely automate stuff at the SEG with the Protect product. The human element is going to be critical because humans are still way cleverer than artificial intelligence. But we can enhance that. And then the final step is to kind of use swarm intelligence and to say, well, if in your company, one of your users saw a phish and reported it, and we said, well, that's a phish, why wouldn't we take that email out of the inbox of all of our customers? Well, that would be kind of logical. So as long as you're using our solution, we can use information from one customer, not personal information, not the actual email, but the knowledge about what that email looked like. We can use that to then remove it from everybody else's inbox. And we started doing that this year, and we were surprised ourselves at how well that worked. So what we see here is at the beginning of January, the first customer at 9:06 reports something. And we could have then taken that out of the inbox of the company. We could have then set that to be automatically deleted from all of our customers' inboxes in the future. But what we actually see is the second customer, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the ninth, days later, even the following week, we've still got other customers, and most of these are fairly large, plus 10,000 plus customers. There's a few smaller ones, but these are typically quite large customers, reporting the same phish, even a week later. And we didn't expect to see that. We always thought that phish were very targeted, because they used to be targeted at a specific organization. But what we're seeing is the attackers have changed their tactics. Maybe they've got lazier, or they know the phish are getting through, and they don't see the need to keep changing them. So actually using the same phish. That means that for this customer, they would never have seen this phish, because the first user to report the first phish within 5 minutes, and the SOC analyst responding to that within minutes or hours, and then setting that to be automatically quarantined, meant none of this would have ever happened. So those are kind of some of the things to look for. in a complete end-to-end solution. It's not just about the user awareness, which is often where people kind of get into this click rate reduction thing. It's about developing a culture where people report stuff and accepting that not everybody will report it or will notice. As long as some people respond quickly and the SOC team or your service provider can respond quickly, you have the option to then take that out of your inbox and be safe. And that is what we see as an end-to-end solution. And some of those components we're able to offer to you through our partner. So I'd like to hand back now to close up in the final minutes of the presentation. And thank you for your attention, thank you for listening.
Ja, dank jullie wel. Bedankt Ian. Ja, ik denk een heel interessant verhaal waar je heel goed kan zien dat het verschil tussen artificial intelligence, human intelligence, je hebt beide nodig om ergens te komen. Nou, Cofense heeft met hun product, Cofense Protect, een oplossing. Cofense Protect maakt ook onderdeel uit van ons managed dienstplatform Cyber Protect, waarin wij een combinatie van e-mailoplossingen, waaronder Mimecast en Cofense, aanbieden om te zorgen dat de gebruiker zo goed mogelijk beschermd is tegen de e-mail. Daar is het een stukje e-mail security om te zorgen dat de mailbox schoon blijft. Daarin zit een stukje het netwerking stuk wat naar voren kwam. Maar ook een stukje awareness om gebruikers bewust te maken van hey, hoe herken ik nou die phish en die knop. Dat de gebruiker het ook kan melden en dat het opgelost gaat worden. Willen jullie er meer over weten? Wij staan hier om de hoek, stand 108 uit mijn hoofd. Je ziet ons vanzelf, X42, groot rood. Kom rustig langs, dan kunnen we daar nog even verder op ingaan als jullie vragen hebben. Ik wil jullie in ieder geval voor zover bedanken voor jullie tijd. En een fijne beurs verder toegewenst. Dank jullie wel.